All right, so peace and love, all. Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Zoe. This is episode 108. Um, we haven't titled it yet. We will soon, but we're gonna have an amazing conversation with a lovely mother of four from Indiana who has a podcast named Raising Four Lions. And today we're just gonna bridge the gap. We're gonna have an amazing conversation with an amazing woman who has a great perspective and is trying to bridge the gap with us. So introduce yourself to the world.
Yeah, so I started doing a podcast probably about a year ago. But really when uh honestly, everything with the pandemic, I think for all of us in general, put a lot of things in perspective. So I personally, my journey, I feel like is focusing on the schools and some of the stuff that um they are teaching I'm not okay with, and so I started really putting some puzzle pieces together, but really started growing a community of parents that are also concerned as well. But the main thing is really to raise children, women, to be strong and to be confident and to also know the word of God, because I feel like that gives them such a it gives them the truth. So when you have that foundation, then the rest, it's easier to what's the word I'm looking for? Um really just
I feel
navigate
like
everything.
it's easier to maneuver through life, when you have a solid foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't always that way. Like I think I went all of us in my own house because we were stir crazy and everything, but I went into a little bit of a depression, but still like putting reading the Bible was really new to me, to like going, I'm still doing it, trying to go from the front to the back and learning all the
Hmm.
stories and trying to educate myself. And so now I feel like it's important that now I'm 42.
Yeah.
What a blessing if I could give that to my kids, that knowledge to my kids now, because I didn't have
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's so. We had a conversation about a week or two ago, and I think for perspective, I think our viewers need to hear about your humble beginnings.
that. Oh, yeah. Um, you know, my mother grew up really, really, really poor. So did my husband's side of the family. They had what they needed, but something that we always never took for granted was really like the financial side of things. We knew that we were going to have to work hard to get where we wanted to go. So
Hmm.
my mom worked her butt off, and so she was actually the breadwinner in the family, and she had five other brothers and sisters growing up. But
Hmm.
her upbringing was not so pleasant. Her mother died when she was 10, and then
Hmm.
her dad traveled a lot, and so she had a stepmother that wasn't very kind. She would
Yeah.
actually lock up the food for the so they couldn't get to it. So she worked really hard to give me and my siblings a different life. So that I will be ever, forever grateful for. But also, you know, fast forward where I've met my husband, we have kids, a couple kids, and it's 2008. We we were both in real estate, and we got hit hard. We almost lost our house. And compared to where we are now, that than where we were then, it's just you just have such an appreciation for everything that you have.
Yeah.
And also it we worked really hard. We worked really,
Yeah.
really hard.
So
So
for the sake of the details, like how would you define poor?
how would I define poor? Poor to me would be having to make decisions to where it would be one or the other. Like you can't have
Hmm.
both.
Yeah.
Poor would be like that maybe as a parent you would feed your child, but you wouldn't feed yourself.
Yeah.
Um, Poor to me would be maybe not even being able to. I think we talked about this before, but it's you're living day to day.
Yeah.
You're not able to see far out in the future. You're literally in survival mode. That
Hmm.
to me, um, I have not experienced that myself, but
Yeah.
I not having food, clothes, relying on others a lot, to be able to just get by,
Yeah.
not having warm meals. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
So with that being said, like how would that definition then kind of relay to you saying your mom grew up poor?
they, she was, there were 6 kids in the family.
Hmm.
Um, they basically were in survival mode as well. I don't think they basically, I mean, yes, they had a roof over their head.
Yeah.
Um, but they it was basically survival. All of them like left the house early as soon as they could to go
Yeah.
start working. So they could, do better for themselves. So she doesn't, it's weird when she talks about it. She actually, there's a lot of things that I think she personally has blocked out,
Yeah.
and never has truly dealt with. But it was more of, from what I understand and what she's told me, it was more of the clothes. They couldn't afford shoes, they couldn't afford clothes. It was a lot of hand-me-down situation, and then really the food situation too, where they really didn't have much food, and if they did, it was very controlled by her stepmother, in
Yeah.
regards to that. So uh yeah, it gave all of them a motivation. Honestly, all of them ended up being successful because when they went out in the workforce, they all worked harder than everybody else. I mean, just the work ethic they had, and just got them to where they are now.
Yeah. I think from a human to human perspective, I think a lot of us have forgotten that we all have our own struggles, regardless of what they may look like or um, what the environment may be like. So I think if we sort of kind of add on to your mother's humble beginnings and then put like a dangerous environment into it, I think that kind of changes the entire perspective of everything.
100%.
You know,
100%. I don't think she ever really had to worry about safety.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And I think that's like the number one thing that's like a disconnect between, we all grew up in different places, but like feeling safe is a luxury, that
Yeah.
not all are afforded. And I feel that when you're not safe, especially as a child, like for instance, great example today, I was on the elevator with my son. There was a lady he didn't know came behind my leg and he hugged my leg.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a feeling that I always want for him to know that he is safe with me
Mm-hmm.
wherever we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose that feeling safe, God knows what life is going to be like after that. And I feel like, mind you, we're not talking about statistics because that's what everyone wants to always focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain feelings that there's no statistic for. It's either you feel it or you don't.
Right. I mean, you were telling me how like every day that you walked to school was just, I couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
I my kids don't have to worry about that at all. At
Yeah.
all. And I just couldn't imagine as a mother worrying about that, or a parent, or just and also as the child. I mean, that was traumatizing, I'm sure. You literally didn't probably, you were just trying to get by,
Hmm.
but I can't even, I don't know what that would be like.
Yeah.
I have
And I
no
feel
idea.
like when we get so consumed with politics and religion or all the many ways that they're trying to divide us, I
Mm-hmm.
think we forget that we just have different struggles, you know, however they may look like. And I think we forget or aren't really taught compassion or empathy for people who are human, you know, 'cause I'm not trying to focus on race today, or if even if you do, it's always going to come back to the sense that we're all human and our struggles look differently. But
Mm-hmm.
that was a mission for me. Like every day was a new adventure on what could happen on my way to school, you know, or on my way home, you know, and I had to live. Well, in the hood we call it being on point, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's pretty simple of what that means. But from a mental health standpoint, always waiting and being on point, that's anxiety
Oh yeah.
because
If you're
you're
in fight or
always
flight all the
anticipating.
time, yeah. Yep.
There it is. So here I am, always waiting, anticipating, head on a swivel, what's going to happen next, what direction, who is it going to be, what does that person look like who's my next opponent? I don't know. It could be the bus, the train, close to my house, or whatever it may be. I could be in the deli and things happen, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that was my reality. So I feel like, yes, we are kind of zoned in certain areas, but I feel like we forget like that's someone else's everyday reality. And you could kind of see and understand why someone would lose hope because we're
Oh,
living in a hopeless environment.
yeah. What what kept you going? I mean, because that's like you feel probably defeated every day, or like you don't have that, dude, do I really want to go to school today? Do I really want to like make that journey every single day? Because I know that you said that you made your education your number one. Um,
So I feel like I have one of the greatest answers ever, in my opinion. But my imagination, my
mm,
imagination kept me going, you know, and that's the beauty of literature. You know, I remember reading books like The Catcher in the Rye or different books in high school, The Alchemist, you know, things that really took you outside of the environment. And
mm-hmm,
that's the beauty of knowing how to read for our young listeners out there. We're gonna do something for everybody today, but it's the beauty of knowing how to read and reading
mm-hmm,
and comprehension and knowing what it is that you're reading. And that book, and those what books are for, is to take your imagination somewhere else. So in these books, I was able to dive deep into something that wasn't my reality at the moment. So
mm-hmm,
the power, that's why I say today as a 30-year-old man is never limit the power of your imagination because I was able to imagine things outside of my environment, you know. So what kept me going was literature, my imagination, and then also having the two brothers that went down the route that they went, I, that wasn't for me. You know,
mm-hmm,
like I see my brothers fight, and I'm sitting there like helpless. Like nothing happened to me because I was a kid. I was sitting there, but here's this full on brawl going on in front of me, and there's nothing I can do about it. So
mm-hmm,
I didn't want to live my life with a target or somebody, you know, feeling a kind of way towards me because of what gang I was in or anything of
mm-hmm.
that nature. So I made a decision at a young age to just stay in my lane. And that's the best thing for anybody in life, just stay in your lane.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was, you let me know what direction you want to go to because there were some hard questions that you had for me.
We're
Uh,
gonna get there, but we're gonna warm you up.
okay.
We're gonna warm you up. So I want to start here. What is the meaning of Black Lives Matter? What do you think Black Lives Matter means to you?
I think that means that basically it was like a cry out for help as well, like that what some were experiencing, where they were seeing Black men being shot or targeted or whatever. I feel like with the George Floyd thing, that really kicked that off, to where for the first time I think the world got to see it on video of some of the
Hmm.
things that people of color have seen or dealt with or have experienced in their own life.
Hmm.
So I think that was it's an awareness to
Yeah.
for others to just be more aware of, the things that you or your friends would have to, anybody that's a person of color that has to worry about being pulled over or um, in my perspective, I feel like it was more BLM started because of George Floyd and just acknowledging everything that was happening in society. With There are cops that are out there that don't do it the right way, that are you are targeted,
Yeah.
and and it's not okay. So, and then I think that, to me, it was just really kind of bringing an awareness to everyone.
Yeah.
um so then we could, I really truly feel that the more you understand the history or the background or the culture of someone else, you're and what they have to deal with on a daily basis, that gives you a lot more empathy, a lot more understanding, so you can be a better friend, or um, just in society, just really being able to be a little bit more um, real, I guess,
Yeah.
with reality.
So, do Black Lives Matter?
Yes, 100%.
And
100%.
how do you feel when people say, well, all lives matter?
No, we had talked about this. From my point of view, it is someone trying to say that everybody should be equal. Like we should
Hmm.
all have the same privileges. We should all have the same um, treatment, um, advantages, all of it. So I don't necessarily think when people are saying that they're meaning it in a malicious way. I think it's an ignorant
Hmm.
way of thinking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And
It
because
makes
at
total
first,
sense.
and I'm going to be very honest too, at first, I didn't understand it. And I'm like, well, what about everybody else? But that wasn't the point. That was not the point.
That was not the point.
So, um, and then when I think when you do say all lives matter, it's almost mocking it, um,
Yes.
and dismissing everybody else's feelings. The whole, like, just, yeah, I think there's just been a lot of learning lately, the
Yeah.
past couple years, for sure.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
mean,
brought.
I feel like when people get the chance to really just empathize with one another and just educate themselves and gain different perspectives,
Hmm.
have different conversations, I
Hmm.
feel like you're able to gain that different perspective and see what you may not see at the time. I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to say at the beginning I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most powerful things you can say sometimes is I don't know.
Yeah.
Because instead of just making something up, maybe saying the wrong thing, like it's okay to say I don't know. I'm
Hmm.
gonna educate myself, and we can talk about it at a later date.
Hmm.
Without any hate involved.
Right.
But I think that's a beautiful thing. You didn't know, but you also kind of understood the perspective and kind of how it was going against the point where if you say Black Lives Matter, it's coming from a place where I feel like my life doesn't matter. Like from a societal standpoint, I feel like my life doesn't matter because the way you see people getting killed and slain, like if they're dogs in the street, like if they're, deers on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you see, bodies of animals on the highway. And Black people, that's how we feel. We feel like our life is worth that much. Just laying there dead on the side of the highway. No one cares. So it's like George Floyd was the one that shocked the world, but there were many before and there were many after,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know? So did the murder of George Floyd have an effect on your perspective?
Yes. So my best friend that's in my neighborhood is Christine, and her husband is from um, Malawi, and so their kids are mixed, and she has three girls, and the youngest is a boy, and my son and her youngest, one of my boys are their best friends, and when that happened, I believe that he was over at our house. JJ was over at our house, and Christine came to pick him up. And I didn't want to freak JJ out. So, but I literally just hugged her because I didn't, it just was a light bulb. Like she has to worry about JJ.
Hmm.
She has to
Yeah,
worry about those things. And he's going to know about that. And he's going to see that. And he's going to try to understand why did that even happen, and
yeah,
then to possibly have then to have fear, so it hit me and hit I think our two families pretty hard, but it
yeah,
was then later that evening we just sat out on her porch, and she just cried,
yeah,
so because it took her a minute, it didn't hit her right away either,
yeah,
so um yeah, it just puts things in perspective, for sure. And every life is precious. And
yeah,
I hate when you said that. I hate the fact that you said that you felt like my life didn't matter.
yeah,
And you don't want that for anybody,
yeah,
for anyone. Because then
absolutely.
how you feel about yourself is going to be, especially when you were younger, like that's going to mold you and lead you on a path of where you're going to go as an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. So without getting too deep into politics, but why are you or were you pro-Trump?
So this is like such a difficult question because I think there's just everything's kind of changing too with where I stand with him in general. But I when I saw him going against, like, being different, not
Hmm.
being a stereotypical politician. That is what I liked about him. Now, did I know a lot of people think that he is racist. And that, some of the things he has said and done, and um I cannot I do not condone any of it. Um I think it was more of a hope for changing the country as in the right direction, not necessarily just pro Trump. And there
Yeah,
weren't really any other options
yeah,
either. You know what I mean? So I think that there is a misconception though that just because I liked some of the policies and stuff like that doesn't mean I necessarily liked him as a human being.
as a human being. Hmm.
Does that make sense?
It
Um,
makes total sense. It makes total sense. And I think for a lot of people of color or from different backgrounds, not a lot of us get this opportunity to have a conversation like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us are influenced by social media and the
Mm-hmm.
news and
Mm-hmm.
that agenda. But did did we have these conversations amongst each other to learn perspective? I would say 85%, no, 85% of America did not have a conversation with a person who voted for Trump
Yeah.
with no animosity, with not coming from a place of I'm going to convince you that you're wrong, or I'm going to block you, and
Yeah.
we're not going to, you're not going to be friends
I had
anymore.
I had a lot of that actually happen
Hmm.
to me. Um, and I guess here's my perspective. Christine, my friend, she did not vote like I did. But
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing is that that is not, she knows my heart. She knows who I am as a person.
hmm.
And so, you know, we were different sides politically, but um yeah, I was in a group of friends in the neighborhood, and that just, they no longer wanted to speak to me. Um
What are some of the what are some of the reasons why they felt that they didn't want to speak to you?
um Basically they felt like, how could you vote for him? He's a horrible human being, a horrible person. Um
Hmm.
and so if you vote for him, they thought that was a direct reflection on me, even though we were friends for a decent amount of time, that they knew who I was. So
Yeah,
I don't know. Um,
yeah. I mean, I do want so like now that everything is unfolded, like I don't know all the. I know he did a lot for the black community. I know he did a lot for HBCUs. I mean, the country was booming. The stock market was booming. Like everything was, was rolling in our favor. Now, is he the sharpest tool in the toolbox sometimes? No. Could he have left Twitter alone? No. I mean, his
right.
antics were his antics,
Yeah.
but I do feel like, I mean, a lot of black people won't say it, but what did Obama really do for our country? You know, like that's debatable. Like
Yeah.
if you look at what Trump did in his 4 years, you
Yeah.
look what Obama did in his 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, I think people were really focused, me included, on my president is black. And we were blinded by all the terrible policies he signed off on. You know, a
But I
lot of
mean,
the things he did.
how understand, like what a big thing though to have the
Mhm.
first black president. I mean, that was like, that's huge. That's
Yeah,
huge. So I could definitely understand that.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still proud of him. He's still
Yeah.
my guy. I'm gonna interview him someday. God willing. But it's one of those things that as far as policies and things that benefited the country and the community, like dropped the ball. But he did have a lot of pressure, and he did inherit. He didn't inherit the best economy
Mm-hmm.
or the best times. Like
Right.
I want to say, what was he inducted in? 08?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
oh
right at
08,
the recession.
right in
Yeah.
the recession.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot to pull around. But I just think that sometimes, when you educate yourself and you're willing to listen to people, you're going to learn more than you coming into a conversation hostile and feeling like I got to prove a point where I can't talk to you anymore. But
Right.
um, just listening to each other.
Yeah. I'm never going to tell anybody how they should vote, how they should feel.
Yeah.
Um, because before all this, nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever
No,
like really
no.
discussed, like, because it does get heated. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't talk about it with family. You don't talk about it because everybody has their own reasons to vote for who they vote for,
Yeah.
that they feel like that would benefit their family the most.
Yeah. I
So
do. I will give Trump this though. I feel like he exposed America for what it truly is. And I feel like there's nothing really united about the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the proof is in the pudding. And I feel like that has really, really like now we're really gonna do the work. That's like it's like going to therapy and telling a bunch of lies, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I feel like now as a country, we can go to therapy and tell our truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we're gonna heal is from our truth. Because if you heal from lies, it's gonna end in lies.
Yep.
You know? So like in Spanish they say, lo que empieza mal termina mal. And that means what begins bad ends bad, you know? So we didn't have a great start to our country, you
Mm-hmm.
know, through all the malicious things we did when we got here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only fair that there's going to be a bad ending,
Mm-hmm.
however that may look. But if we come together, we tell our truth, and we heal as a nation, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that we had talked a little bit too about like just um adding those things into the history lessons and to
Mm-hmm.
like we were talking about Black Wall Street and what was it Tuskegee Airmen and
Yep,
like
the
those are things I mean
Tuskegee.
as a black child or a person of color I mean if you start you read that and then you're proud
Yeah,
like that's a whole new ball game you're thinking yeah you're
you tap
thinking
in for so one of the most important things of HBCUs and predominantly Black educational institutions
hmm
is teaching you how to be proud of your culture, of your heritage, of where you come from.
hmm
When you teach someone who's oppressed, oppression, you only get oppression. Like there's no way you get. It's almost like I give you a nasty dinner and a nasty drink. There's nothing to feel good about afterwards. So I'm oppressed already. You know, I'm from the South Bronx. You know, I'm not feeling that great about my life. And then everything I learn about Black people is tragedy and not triumph. So how am I supposed to feel in the end? What am I supposed to be proud of if
right or the
everything they're
hope
teaching me
that
is
you have for
oppression?
yourself yeah yeah
Okay,
like
then
what are you going to become or what are you able to do and so like yeah those
hmm
yeah
all of those are factors. So mind you, we're not talking about statistics. You know, we're talking about emotional intelligence.
mm-hmm
You know, we're talking about that feeling of understanding how others may feel that are in different situations that may not look nor resemble anything that's in your reality, but
mm-hmm
we all live in different realities. And notice that we have great empathy for people in, I don't want to say in other places that are in America that we feel for them, but we don't feel for us here.
mm-hmm
You know, like you see a commercial,
it's a
you know, feed a
complete
kid for a
disconnect
dollar a year, and it's exact. Thank you,
I don't
thank you.
understand that like how is it that you can and God bless them but like in Ukraine and everything that's going on there
Cool.
all of that money, what would happen if we put it back into our own country? And I'm not saying we don't help. I'm saying why, if it's so easy to give them money, why are we not doing it here?
Yeah,
So that's a whole nother rabbit hole that you don't
it's
want
a
me
whole
to
nother
go
rabbit hole, but
down.
you know, we put it out there. But I want to quote you. Um, you said, I don't like how it's being pushed that Black children are oppressed. I want them to feel empowered and not a disadvantage.
Yeah,
So that's literally what we've been saying right here.
yeah.
But what makes you feel that way?
Um, I love children. I want, I mean, I love human beings. I mean, I just want everybody to be able to have the same opportunities, to be able to feel good about themselves, um to feel good in the skin that they are in. I mean, you can't change I can't change what I was born as. You cannot change what you were born as.
Mhm.
And just to really for all of us to be kind of I mean, I know it sounds utopia, but like to be able to get there one day. But we have to start now. And that's
Yeah.
but like doing the small things of um just really, I think being able to understand each other's culture,
Yeah.
I think is huge.
Yeah.
Um, but
I feel like with culture, you gotta have exposure. So
yes,
like look
yeah.
look look where I am in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and look how we were able to cross paths.
Mm-hmm.
You bumped into my podcast. You were a fan of it. You liked what you
Mm-hmm.
saw. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Yeah.
And before I say my next point, what made you reach out?
I always I'm on a journey of learning. I am like, I want to be able to learn from everyone and anyone I can. And
Hmm.
so when I saw what you were doing, um, I just and then we started talking, you were telling me more about your journey. I was like, I need to know more about this person, and so that
Yeah,
I can understand and get a better perspective. And then we were both like, how, oh, we have less than a minute on this for to record. But I think we both wanted to learn from each other. That's for sure.
yeah,
And I think we both are we're at the same point where now we realize that unity is the only way that we can do that and actually make a change.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's end this one, save it, and let's start again.
Okay.